my name is Kenlyn, everybody who doesn't already know me. And I'm actually really excited about this because I feel like I've had a set of experiences that can really, I'm hoping, help a lot of people. And I've tried to figure out like how can I help in this time? And I'm excited to be here, so thank you. So a little bit about me. I'm a full-stack web developer, global product geek. I was a product manager sometime in the medical devices industry. I've also been an entrepreneur at some point, and then industry and career switcher, coaching enthusiast, coffee drinker mom, and I'm not a natural networker. So before that, though, I guess what leads to this particular talk is that there's when I went to business school at UCLA, there's a lot of people that were not unhappy in their work, and there's a lot of people that were really excited about what they're doing. And I mean, everybody can define success in their own way, but for myself, is I wanted, like, success for me is how it's like loving your work. And I mean, to at least some extent, like not every job's going to have its thing, but what is it that could be like energizing, at least to some extent? And so I wanted to find that. I wanted to understand that. But then also, like in 2011, 2012, I also went through some pretty, like, I guess, devastating times. Which actually is very similar to what I think a lot of people are going through in the pandemic right now. So like, say October 2011, like I was a business owner, like a director of a medical device company, and married, kids. But then a year later, I was like single mom. I had to completely switch my job because I couldn't travel anymore. I couldn't do a lot of the things like that I could do before. So it made it so I had to rethink my entire life. Like, it felt like my life had to get a new definition. So I guess what I'm going to share a little bit today is, how did I do that? Like, how did I create definition in a time where, like, the future was completely unclear? And hopefully for you guys, like, it's not quite the same extent, but some of you it might be. And but the cool thing is that you can find opportunities in loss. And so we'll find out, like, what I'm hoping today is that I'll be able to share a little bit of that journey and also help you find what you're excited to do. So, so about me, some more is, like, I used to do a lot of surfing. I also hated networking because I thought, oh my gosh, it's like schmoozing. Like, I was completely convinced before, when I was looking for sponsors, I'm like, what is that? I don't want to be running around and asking people for stuff. Like, I don't get this. But the cool thing is, it's like, networking isn't schmoozing. It's about authentically showing up and being generous, which, I can sign up for that. So what we're going to talk about today is keys to authentic communication. Networking is not what you think it might be, and best practices. And also feel free to jump in with any questions or whatever. I also want this time to be, like, to serve you guys. So just let me know. Okay, so first, keys to authentic communication. I love this quote because it's like, what is it that we're about? Like, we are what our deep driving desire is. As our deep driving desire is, so is our will. So our will is, and so is our deed. And as our deed is, so is our destiny. So what is it that we authentically care about? I love this concept. As Avi Flombaum introduced this to me from Flatiron School. It's ikigai. It's about, means like a reason for being. And so the reason that you wake up in the morning. And so it's, it sounds really lofty, but, it's something that we can connect with. We can get closer to what our truth is. So this is what the concept is. It's just all these different things that combine, like, what is it that you love to do, what you're good at, what the world needs and what you can be paid for, like those 4 areas. And the intersection of those 4 is like the sweet spot. And the nice thing is though, we can always, even if we're not in that spot, we can make small steps towards it. So next. So how does, okay, so the question might be like, well, how do I get there when it feels like giant meteor 2020 just needs to show up in 2020? The question, you might have the questions like, well, how do I communicate authentically when I don't blank like I used to? Like, I don't even know. Like what am I even allowed to want anymore in this year? And I feel like I can't even blank like I should. And I can relate to some of those. At some point, like I felt extremely paralyzed at times. Like I couldn't even write a to-do list at one point, which was really like, how can that be? Like I went through business school and I was working full time. Like how did I go from that to not being able to write a to-do list? So I can, if you guys are feeling a paralysis at any point, I can definitely relate. And I'll tell you that it's not permanent, which if you ever felt like that. So now, number one thing is get rid of the shoulds. So the first thing we're going to go into is the self-talk. So just to tell you where I'm going is I'm going to go from like the small things that we can do to the large action steps for the networking. And I guess what I found successful for myself is getting rid of the negative self-talk. I think that's just to move from paralysis to action is to get rid of those things. And the best way to predict the future is to create it. So the creators of the book, Designing Your Life, they are design thinkers. And this is one of the things they shared is how you can apply design thinking to your life. So there's reframing, collaboration, curiosity, bias towards action, and being mindful of the process. So reframing is the first step, in my opinion. I think the most important things to me is reframing, curiosity, and bias towards action. We'll start at reframing. So, okay, so right now, we're gonna go just down into feelings. You probably feel like, I feel horrible, like, and I can't do this, I can't do that, and like, what's wrong with me? Well, let's put it in context of like of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for example. Maybe some of you are already like really familiar with this, but I loved this graphic that I found. So we're basically our I guess sense of self or what we do is on a pyramid shape. It's like our foundation needs to be like physiological well-being, safety, belonging. Like once those needs are met, then you can go on to the esteem and self-actualization, like realizing your full potential. So if we're not feeling like, hey, we're not reaching our full potential, that is totally like expected. Like how can we, if our other needs are not being met at the physiological safety and even belonging, because we can't connect with people like we used to be able to do on a day-to-day basis. So I guess a lot of it is going to be a lot of self-care. So we have to turn to ourselves. At least I found for myself is I needed to turn to myself, because also being a mom, as anybody's a parent, being a parent can be really isolating. And then after going through something challenging like I did, it was even more so. So I had to begin with self-compassion. So I love this. It's like, just show your self-compassion. You're trying to build a pyramid on a shaky foundation. And even if you can't quite see it, you are doing beautifully, which is the truth. And I think that was the thing, is to quiet the things in my head that told me that I wasn't, that I was failing, or that I had failed or something. And just going to like, you know what, I got up today and my kids are fed and I'm alive, I've got friends, I'll take that as a win, instead of like putting my bar up at like the self-actualization point, just being like, you know what, I did a good job with where I'm at. So self-talk. So here's a lot of things that we can often say to ourselves is, I should have done this, or I can't do anything about blank. And replace it with, like, next time I will. Because I used to be a big one on beating myself up. I changed it to, well, okay, what did I learn? Next time I'm going to do this. I can't do this yet. And then replace the I can't with the yet. Like, yet's actually really powerful, going from something that, like saying you can't do it, but just like, no, you can't do it yet. And that's, as you guys are developers, I think I had to do that mind trick learning how to code and stuff. It's like, okay, I can't do it yet. And then finally replacing the one with, I can't do anything about blank, is like, I'm doing the best I can with what I have. Like a lot of the national news, it's just like, I kind of just skim it and I'm just like, okay, I don't have any power over those things, but I can do the best with what I have and what I'm doing right now in this space right here with you guys. I'm doing the best I can. So you can, I love this graphic as well. You can choose to bloom wherever you're planted. And that's because you have a choice. And that good enough for now is great. And you can begin to imagine your path forward. So I love the choice part. Like, we do have a choice even in this moment. And that's actually how I've thought about, like, my career in this pandemic, is rather like reframing, going back to the reframing is like, this is an opportunity for me to think about, what is it that I want after this is all over? After this is all over, where do I want to be, and what can I do about it right now? So, okay, so there's a lot of these thoughts, like, I'm not sure what to do, I need to do next, I'm stuck, I hate my job, why do I get unstuck? Like in the book, Designing Your Life, there's this lady, Janine, she had all these things that would, from the outside, look like success, but inside they were miserable. They wanted to change from that to a life that they're excited about. So again, I'm going to talk a lot about the internal, is get rid of these dysfunctional beliefs. Like, you need to find your passion. Like, most of us like a lot of things, and there's multiple paths to happiness. I should know where I'm going by now. Full transparency, like, I didn't start coding until, I don't know, I'm 45. I graduated from Fodder School in 2017. So I was 42. That's supposed to be, I guess I'm as ancient apparently. But anyway, I need to be the best version of myself. It's like, no, you don't have to be the best version of yourself all the time. It's like, better is actually great as well. So just giving ourselves a break is a really important thing. So design thinking, back to that. Now we're going to talk about bias towards action. Like, what do we do? Like, in addition to those small actions that we give ourselves, like the breaks that we give ourselves, now we're going towards the external action. So first, how do you set your target? So you want to identify those moments, as far as like, we're going to talk about career, those moments of flow that, like in your work, like, when are those moments that you just totally lose yourself in what you're doing and you totally love it? This is a document I'm going to go ahead and share, but this is something that's, if you guys want to go through it afterwards, you can, this is a resource you could use. This is from Emily Taylor at Next Up Careers. You just identify what are those areas. And then finally, like, also, who do you know, or even on LinkedIn, you could just do a search on LinkedIn, like, whose career would you love to have? And you can study, like, how did they get there? What were the skills that they had? You might even, like, if you felt comfortable too, you could reach out and ask them for a virtual coffee or something. And then once you've identified what these things are, you could just start to build these habits in. Like, is it like you have to learn something? Like, learn something new, a little new new every day. And then as you make these small adjustments, it'll add up. I mean, I think, Becca, I think you mentioned Atomic Habits. Like this is like kind of the, if you haven't read that book, that's a good one. It talks about how like these minor changes, when you add them up, it actually ends up being really big. That's what I felt like over this summer, even like, because my job got delayed and I was just like coding a little bit every day and like chasing kids around. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was like getting frustrated with myself about not coding enough, but I was like, well, okay, I'm just going to let this go and keep going. But then at the end of the summer, I'd actually had a project that was built up. And when my job finally did come through, I actually feel pretty good about onboarding. I don't feel bad. So anyway, I just testify, small things add up. All right, so also you guys are CEOs of your own life. It's like no one can manage you better than you. You can think of yourself as a product and your career as a business. So once you have your idea of where you want to go, you create a marketing plan. So this is a link to a job search marketing plan, which you can have afterwards. Set your targets, like line out, like who are you going to meet with? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to learn? So just taking action, like it breeds confidence and courage. I love that quote. And I definitely, is like, for me, when I get frozen, it's like when I don't feel like I can do anything, but if I can start doing something, then it starts to, like the snowball starts to roll in the right direction and grow. Okay, but what if I'm an introvert? And that's another question, like, well, what if I don't like talking to people? But what's even more important is being authentic. It's actually more important than personality. So you don't have to be some charismatic person to be a good networker. So this guy, I love this because he says he has zero natural charisma, but all he just needed to do was just change like how he communicated about himself, and he's been successful with that. And I can say that too because I've not been that way. Something I learned for sure. So next, networking is not what you might think it is. So who here has heard of Paul Revere's ride? I think probably just about everybody has heard that in history books about how Paul Revere alerted everyone in Boston that the British were coming. But how many of you knew that there were 3? And that Paul Revere actually never finished, but there was actually 2 other people, William Dawes and Dr. Prescott. So I can't seem to see my notes, but anyway, okay, I see you have some comments. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, so anyway, so the difference, like there's a book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. He's saying that, well, the reason why Paul Revere was he's remembered is because that he was the person who bothered to pound on the doors, and he knew all these people, that it was network effects. There's some people that are don't agree, but overall, I mean, he's in the history books and these other guys are not because of what he did. He put himself out there. He actually documented his ride. It's really interesting history. So actually, and if you are, so now after I've told the story and you are getting the feeling like, oh, well, gosh, I didn't know that, and I want to share that, hold on to that feeling, because that is the beginnings of networking. You want to share that good thing with somebody else. So networking is generosity. It's a core commitment to serve others. It's like, hey, if you wanted to have information that you want to share with somebody, that's a service. And strategic is not the same as transactional. Just because you want to meet somebody and know more about them does not mean that you're just being transactional about it. You are coming with the intent to serve. and to create a win-win. So there's less ego involved and there's more service. And one of the most important ways to serve others that is most impactful is in any way you can affect their health, wealth, or children. Like say if there's a job opportunity you know of, I mean, that's affecting wealth. If you're helping somebody with health, maybe, I don't know, make a mask or something. I mean, that's important. I mean, it shows that you really care about their really important needs. So networking goals, we want to build relationships. What is the trust and transfer of trust? We want to be reliable and authentic and maintaining that connection over time. Because maintaining the connection over time, it shows that we really are interested in that person and about who they are. So who is your doc spade? So this is a story about like Starbucks, and they were looking for a general counsel, and they couldn't decide on who to, among pretty evenly matched contenders. They couldn't decide like who should they hire. The CEO knew the mailman, Doc, and the Doc, when he called him up, he was a mail person, and he said, "Oh yeah, I love Janine," or whoever she was, that she talks sports with me. You know, so I mean, just the fact that it showed something about that person's character. So you never know who you're going to be impacting through kindness. And so who's your doc spade in your network? So as you begin with this kindness and this authentic communication, it's just going to it's going to return. It's just like, you don't want to go into things with the idea that you're going to get something back. You don't keep score. It's just, it pays itself forward. And it comes back eventually in some way, because just what you put out there into the universe, it comes as a way of coming back. So best practices, map your network. So first we're going to talk about networks versus databases. Databases like LinkedIn, like you don't necessarily have strong connections to. A network are those people that are going to call you back or email you back. Those are your stronger connections. Strong connections are people in your community that you know, family, and weak connections are, as you know, just like people that you don't know as well. So that's pretty straightforward. But there's a lot of people who care about you and reach out to them. Like one of the ones that really made a difference for me recently was one of my former bosses I reached out to for a reference, and really supportive. And so it was just taking that step of, you know, seeing how he's doing, and also asking if he might be willing to make a recommendation. And he was very enthusiastic about it. So really grateful. Again, like that was back from 2017, like 18. And you just never know who you're gonna impact in a positive way. So mapping your network, you can have there's a networking tracking sheet that I've got here. Apparently I used it and I need to clear it up. Anyway, but I'll fix that. But anyway, so you've got like these different networks, and you can track your networking, like it helps to keep track of who you've spoken to. And if you're really on like a job hunt, for example, I find that really, really helpful. So asking for help, they need to be clear and actionable and achievable. You create an elevator pitch. You know, there's plenty of resources out there on elevator pitch. So I was going to go into how to do that at the moment. But most important, make it short, because as you know, with people's attention spans, they can be, and they just want to get a sense of for you like right away. So memorable, relevant, and concise, and be adaptable to the context. Like you can, like this elevator's pitch could be used in an elevator, or it could be at a lunch or a virtual coffee or something. most important that is to have courage. As you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. And I think it goes a little bit back towards what I was talking about before, with people actually care about you, and you can be your best advocate. So just go for it, whatever it is that you are going for in life. So there are a lot of, we can still attend events. That's one thing that we can still do. So never attend an event. Go where the people you want to blank with hang out. I actually had a really successful virtual event this year. I went to a conference, and there was a guy who was giving a talk on remote work. And then afterwards I reached out and I said, hey, I really love that talk you did. And he then gave me the slides and says, let me know if you want to talk afterwards. And so then I took him up on that. I went and did a virtual coffee with him. And then after that, I ended up actually on the side, like doing a small bit of teaching code for that company now, which that's not what I was looking for. I was just like, right on, that's a great talk. But yeah, it's funny how these things work out. It wasn't planned, but you can meet people at conferences just by saying, hey, just find what's good and let them know that what you appreciate about them. And it actually makes a big difference. So, okay, a day of event. I mean, some of this stuff may or may not apply. Oh yeah, this one is maybe not so much, but it can be adapted. I thought I got rid of that handshake thing. Okay. Well, anyway, you know what the intent is basically, a lot of it is just like research who's going to be there. Like if you're going there for a job, for example, for the virtual event for a job, kind of pay attention to who's going to be there and see if you're curious about something that they're speaking about, then you can always reach out to them and find a way to connect in that way, or you can do what I did, which was voice your appreciation for what they did. Or there are often these, like, think about what's in it for them. So a lot of these speakers, they are very interested in like, they're speaking because they want to be seen as a thought leader most of the time. So they'll appreciate any retweets, things like that online. So if you're helping them to elevate their presence, I mean, that's a way to help their health, like their health, wealth, or safety. Again, it falls in one of those buckets. So that's one way. You could just like do a retweet, like, hey, I love this talk by so-and-so. And I found that has actually been a way to connect with people that I admire and I think are really good to know. So that's one thing we can do in the virtual world. Norms in other cultures, if you're networking internationally, yeah, I guess that could pay off. Like with Japan, like there's certain cultures that care a lot more about small talk in front, because we Americans tend to like get to business right away. There's a lot of cultures like Latin America and like Japan. I don't know about, I'm sure China and Korea might be really similar, but anyway, they tend to want to establish relationships, know who you are more than they like at first up front, rather than talk business. So those are things that could be important to consider in how you virtually communicate with them if they come from a different language. It's probably good to, like I've done this before, is just Googling a little bit, like how do people communicate in X country, just to get a little bit of an idea of how to approach them thoughtfully. So I know one thing, like Denmark, they I think they got a kick of me trying to do Danish, but so anyway, if I can make them laugh, that was, that was a good thing. Anyway, so presence, so being prepared. Well, actually, I should back up. I think this graph is actually the most important. Like our body language makes up 55% of our communication, and there's voice tone, and then words, I guess that would be text. So in this virtual time, it's probably like best to have, if you want to communicate, it's best to have your camera on. Also, we can watch our voice tone. So those things are still true, even if we're not meeting with people in person. It's like, how do we present online? Actually, what's been really interesting to me is just how, like with the whole background thing, I don't know what I'm saying with my background here, but I know like when I had like my bookshelf up and there was somebody that was saying, oh, like you have kids and this and that. So I don't know if there's anything that you don't want people to see behind you, just be mindful of that, and you can move it. I mean, I want people to see my kids, don't get me wrong, but it was just interesting to know that people are paying attention, was my point. Even if you wouldn't expect them to. So I don't know, if I had like which also, by the way, this is why my desk is turned this way, but not that way. So that's I'm in my basement. But anyway, so for the events, like you want to have some preparation, like just think about how do you want to show up? How's your body language? Look at the camera and have the camera on. So people won't remember what you said or what they did. They'll remember how you made them feel. That's a Maya Angelou quote. So whenever you're meeting people, just be curious, like learn what's important to them, have some virtual coffees. You could pay attention to what people are sharing in Slack, because you could find out a lot about what their interests are. Like definitely not in a stalky way, but you know what I mean. But show up, like be where the conversations are happening and welcome people into it. I think a lot of it is just like that positive energy is just letting people know like what you liked about it. I think that goes a long way, because then it's like interest is interesting. Like if you're interested, that makes you more interesting. And I forgot where I read that recently, but I thought that was a really good quote. That don't make somebody feel trapped and don't monopolize people. So follow up. You wanted to say thank people for their time. Follow up with email. You can email articles that you know they'll be interested in. You can have a list of, with that networking sheet, you can do random thoughtful calls if you want. You can forward LinkedIn profiles or introduce people to one another. I found that one's a really good one. It's just like, especially I think as people go higher up in their careers, like they really appreciate more and more like these connections. So if you can introduce them to opportunities, then they really appreciate it. But anybody can appreciate like a good connection, like great conversations. That's a positive. And invite people to join you. So yeah, I guess that would be it. I mean, well, Becca invited me to virtual coffee, so thank you, Becca. So it's been amazing. So thankful.
So glad to have you here.
So long story short, TLDR. Yeah, authenticity begins with knowing what is most important to you in life. Real networking is about generosity, making new contacts for the long term, build community before you need it, because it's not great to not know anybody when you find that you need community. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks so much for doing this, Kenlyn. This has been great.
Okay.
Yeah, this was like, I feel like at just the right time, because all the stuff you said about at the beginning about feeling like muddled and sort of not sure, everything kind of feels in flux. I'm just like, what do I do now? Like, where are we going from here? I like the idea of focusing on like what you can do and what you can achieve, and not letting yourself just sort of like go all over the place because of everything that's going on. So now I have given myself a ton of tasks from your presentation that I'm going to do as soon as possible, like sort of really establishing what my goals are for the next like 3 months and 6 months, and turning those into actual pipelines to see it succeed. So I'm like pretty excited right now. I'm pretty amped. It's been like raining all
Awesome.
week, but like I feel like really positive right now. Also, my socks aren't wet today, so that's also good.
Yes.
Did
Awesome.
did all the material come from designing your life?
A lot of the, let's see, designing, there's a lot of designing your life, a little bit of designing your work life. Never eat alone. Like these, here's like the resources. And some of it was just from my own experience. And there's this other lady named, I forgot who. Well, I've spent a lot of time going to like networking things. Diane somebody. I can forward her name to you, but she was mostly on like in-person networking. So I tried to kind of tweaked it a bit to make it apply. Oh, and here's finally, flow moments. She was, I also went to like a couple of different career workshops. So Emily Taylor from Next Step Careers is one. She was her flow moments and career crush exercise. That was from her, and she does career consulting down in Los Angeles. So yeah, so here's a list of resources. And also I added this, living with worry and anxiety amidst global uncertainty. Now this is from like a psychologist, and like therapists are handing this out. So I found that this could be really helpful if anyone struggles with worry, anxiety in this time. So I'll be sharing this deck out so you guys can check out all the resources.
What was the Japanese word?
Oh, Ikigai.
Ikigai. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because this year I've been, because I'm half Japanese, and so I've been doing a lot of study on like the internment camps and stuff because my grandparents went through it, and also just kind of seeing like how did that play into my psyche. And one of the things was gaman, which is persist. And I'm finding though, like that's not always the healthy way. Just persisting is not, like for myself, I've found like I've been really good at persisting in my life, a lot of times through stuff that maybe I shouldn't have persisted through. But a lot of it was when I failed, when persistence was not the great idea for me, is when I didn't know myself authentically. You know what I mean? Like, is understand like how do I feel about this situation? And so I think that combination of understanding how you feel and persisting, I think it makes a strong combination. I don't know if that maybe is more than you asked for, but I just throw that out there.
Do you feel like you found your Ikigai? Are you closer to that now?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm closer than I was. A lot of it because I used to do a lot of art when I was younger, and then my dad. I mean, I don't know if this is like an Asian dad thing or not, but he was just like, "Go get a real job." So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go. I like ocean. I'll do biology. I'll looked into med school, all that fun stuff. It sounds very stereotypical, but I spent a lot of the front side of my life doing a lot of shoulds, like I should be doing this or should be doing that. And then what I discovered also, like having to adapt to my situation, like, web development actually offers some creativity, and it has that combination of, paying a decent wage and being flexible for kids. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like I've gotten closer. And I think going through this process, I've been going through this for 8 years now. So I definitely feel like I've made a lot of forward progress. So I feel like I'm there for now.
I think that kind of that concept of Gaman versus Ikigai would make just an awesome workshop on its own. Because I think maybe some of us feel like, should we persist? We've made it so far in what we're doing, or is it time to shift?
Yeah. And then there's no shame in shifting. Because I think I got give myself that too. It's like, oh, I shouldn't quit. Like, never quit. Like, if I quit, then I fail. That's not, that's actually not the thing. It's like, sometimes if something's not working, it's not working, and that's okay. So, yeah. Yeah, we could do that. If you guys are interested afterwards, we could always, we could talk about persisting versus not, or persisting versus changing course.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool because like sunk cost fallacy is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
especially I think for people considering career change, you know, there's always like this big impetus. Yeah, I guess it's like everyone was saying, you feel like you've put so much work, like am I losing that work if I transfer? Or maybe there needs to be like a reframing of the experience is still valuable, but I'm just applying it in a different field now, and that might be the way to put that in perspective. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've run into that too, because with switching from business, 'cause I went to business school and UCLA is not cheap. And I, had this thing in my head that I was going to be doing this business for so long. And then I'm like, oh, well, I should be a product manager. I should be doing this, but it doesn't match up with what I actually want to do. And I did kind of make a shift again, like a 2000, maybe this is a good anecdote. I don't know, 2018, I got hired on as an engineer. And then day one, they're like, oh, well, we see that you know how to do product management. Can you do this for 90 days? And I'm like, oh, well, sure. I like product management and I'm happy to help. But I would think I've always been really easygoing. But by doing that, I was letting somebody else dictate what I wanted in with my career. So then I ended up shifting and doing that, but then I lost time. And part of it was that fear of like, maybe I shouldn't let this go to waste, but it's like, I second guessed myself in that moment. But then, so what's true is that when now I'm onboarding onto this engineering team, I'm seeing like, no, like this is what I'm doing for now. And I love it. And my experience is giving me perspective that's actually helping my team, because I know the context I'm sitting in better than I would have. And who knows what the future is going to be. And it does, I don't know how to explain it, but it does feel like the things that I've learned are still coming into play, but in a way that I am actually happier with what I'm doing than I would have been, because product management is kind of stressful. You never get to turn off ever. But I'm happier with what I'm doing now, even though, yeah, sunk cost, I was like struggling with that one for a while. But it's not a waste.
I have another question.
Okay.
Okay, so this one is like very personal for me and something like I've always struggled with, but it's definitely ramped up during the pandemic, which is there are people in my life who I care about that I want to reach out to, or like I want to like stay in touch with, but then sort of like life happens and then you realize you go sort of like long periods and then they reach out and you realize like, oh, it's been so long and I really wish, like, I don't know. Do you have any techniques that you use just to make sure like you keep in contact with the people that like you want to keep in contact with? Because it's not the case of like I don't want to talk to them. It's just like I just need a system so that I don't lose track of, oh, I need to reach out to that person, and then like something else happens and the thought like goes away, you know?
Well, honestly, I think that I could be better at it myself. I think what's helped me is just even putting a little note for myself on Google Calendar or whatever calendar system I'm using. Is just like put a note, like follow up with so and so on this day, and then follow up with it on that day while I'm thinking about it. Otherwise, like it'll just, time goes by and I haven't reached out.
The Keith Ferrazzi book, Never Eat Alone, has some good systems in there about when to reach out to people. I mean, he has lists of people by city, and when he's going to a city, he reaches out to people, and he has their birthdays, and he always contacts people on their birthdays, and just kind of these different systems to regularly contact people.
Yeah, that is a good book. I definitely aspire to do something like that. He's I'd say the master of networking. I second that, Glenn.
Can we post the book name in the chat, please?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty useful. I'd like to check it out. It's like I want to sometimes like there'd be like a 2-month period where I'm really good at it and I'm like very happy and like I'm checking in with everyone and I feel good, and then it just like never. Thank you.
Sorry, Kurt. For me, it's the same. And I realized recently that when I stop calling people is when I'm not feeling that well. You know, when I'm happy and positive. I think sometimes it's also why I'm not reaching out. And yeah, having those systems in place, I think it will help. But thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know you, sometimes it's just like, I don't feel like talking to anybody. So then that could be part of contributing to when I don't. It's like I'm in whatever zone I'm in at the moment, just getting by for the day. So yeah, having a system is really great.
Can I ask a question?
You go ahead. I've been talking lots.
I was going to ask a question. It's for me, networking is very difficult for me. I find it really hard, for instance, when before COVID, like entering a room full of people that I don't know and start the conversation. And although I know like what I would have to do, like when I'm in the moment, it's really hard. And virtually, I've been trying to do better, but I don't know if you have any tips on how to practice, or I know doing more and more will help, but also, I don't know.
I think one way that's been helpful for me is also just to take the pressure off myself, is to ask questions. And actually, that's something I'm actually trying to get better at myself. And actually, I just met somebody the other day that specializes in asking questions like this once, because if you can get other people to talk, like there's no other subject that people want to talk about more than themselves in general. So if you're asking these questions, that you can learn about them, and then that can prompt more questions from you for them. And next thing you know, you're having a conversation and you're developing a relationship. So if you're having a hard time.
Have any of you read How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yeah, that's a good book.
I read that. And that's one of the tips he says is if you want people to like you or think you're a good conversationalist, just ask them questions about themselves and let them respond, and they'll think you're the greatest person in the room.
You know, I'm glad you brought, that's a great book to add. Thanks, Drew. I could definitely recommend it. I'm actually honestly terrible at reading the whole books, but even just reading the first like third or half is really helpful.
Can you drop the link for the book?
Yeah.
Apologies to be so quiet over here. I've been I'm rocking a sinus infection right now, so I'm like really feeling like garbage at the moment today.
Nice.
But
I had one of those a few weeks ago.
Oh my gosh, it's just like it's the season. I don't know. I mean, I'm just like the steroids can kick in any time now to be just so much better. But obviously, I've missed a few of these book titles. Kirk, anyone else that's taking notes? Kirk, you usually take notes. That's why I said that. Have you gotten them all by chance? Because I just would like to make sure I don't miss them, because I kind of collect a lot of these things, and I don't know if they all got put in the chat. So
I have not, because my notes they're not looking good right now. Thankfully, I guess let's record
Go team.
it. We should probably.
That is true. This is recorded.
We should actually probably look into like transcription for some of these and maybe see if we can have multiple formats for the content.
Well, I do believe that these recordings do potentially record audio and create a transcript, at least listening. But I'm not sure. I know there's an Otter AI like plugin that we could potentially use, but Brian kind of owns these meetings. That's the Zoom account that we're actually using. But I can totally bug him and see what our options are to make it better and make him pay for it.
100% in support of bugging Brian.
That's my job, literally. I was hired to do that.
Kenlyn, did you mentioned that you're going to make the slide deck available too, right?
Yeah.
So all of the resources that you have and the ones that are linked, we'll be able to see those.
Yes.
That's good.
And also, I just want to, again, shout out to Drew for bringing up the book reference. I added that to the reference list as well. So thanks, you guys. And also clean up that networking template. Apparently, I didn't make a copy and I filled it up with stuff. But one thing I guess I want to leave with is just remember that you guys we're doing beautifully in this time of COVID, and just showing up. You showed up, which is 80% of the effort. So just remember, like showing, even if, so I forget, it was, I'm sorry, what's your name? I can't see. But anyway, so even if you're not a great networker, just, if you don't feel like it, just showing up is more than a lot. Like you've accomplished a lot just by showing up. So I guess that's one last thing I would leave with, is just show up and show up for yourself. And, we'll get through this. So.
Oh, I'm hopping off.
All
Later,
right.
everyone.
Well, thank you guys.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much
Yeah.
for this. So
All right. That's it.
You.
yeah,
All
that's
right.
it for us.
Okay. All right. Thanks, you guys. All right.
Right,
Bye.
take care.